All right, today we're painting a stormy, moody scene, if you will, stormy sky with a foggy forest and lake. In this first part, I'm putting in my sky. I'm using straight titanium white, and then I'm also using titanium white mixed with ultramarine blue and just a dab of Mars black just to make a very light blue. The third color that I will put in is going to be titanium white with a dab of ultramarine blue and a whole lot of Mars black to make a darker gray. And I'm using a whole lot of water here in these colors to keep them very, very wet so that the blending process will be easier. But I put all three colors on fairly wet with a wet blush type of brush. And in the next section, you're going to see how I blend it all together. Okay, here I am going in with a second blush type of brush. This one is dry. I'm going in with a very, very soft touch, and I'm starting with my lightest color, which would be the white, and I'm just swirling that around gently into my blue. And then lastly, I'll start swirling very lightly into my gray to add some movement and texture to give the indication of clouds. Again, a very, very soft touch. You don't want to blend your colors together too much, just enough to give that added texture and depth. Stay tuned for the next part as we add in the foggy hills. Okay, here I'm using the same gray from the sky. All I did was added a little bit of the ultramarine blue to it and a little more Mars black to darken it. I've got a very wet brush going in, and I am using a straight, like flat edge square brush, and I am just tabbing in, like tapping basically, and drawing up and down lines of little tiny indications of trees, if you will. And I'm putting them in a downhill slope, so it looks like a distant hill of trees in the fog. And then I go in after with a little more of the titanium white and dab that in here and there, just to make sure that I have heavy enough fog to really blend that back into the distance. All right, at this point, I'm taking a large, just general paintbrush that's dry, and I am softening that section. I'm just lightly swirling around to give a foggy illusion effect of trees. And I will repeat this multiple times on both sides of the canvas, going down in a hill motion, with this first layer being the distant trees that are more of a grayish, and then the next layer of trees will be more of a green. But it's again the same process. does not sit well in my stand, so it's actually stuck in my stand. I'm going to do some freehanding down here. The bottom's going to be darker, so it's closer. Okay. It's like your foreground, if you will. There's going to be some shadow down there. Okay. And grab my white. It's still going to be kind of fogged, but it is going to be more of a shadowy. Okay. Now let's go into my green, my deeper, richer green. And again, start getting more definition. We're going to get more spacing on these treetops. Put this down for this. Okay. And these are going to have some more details going into them after, because they're closer to us. And because we can, I'm going to do this side. Okay. And on this part, I'm not really going to be putting any fog. I'm just going to soften it. Because again, it's closer to us. It's going to show up a little bit more. There's still fog in the background. This part, I'm not really concerned about that. All right, here I'm using a fine detail liner brush. And I'm just going into the very tips of the treetops in the first green layer, well, the background green layer of trees. And I am just lightly dabbing in little dots and what looks like branches and treetops that are sticking out of the fog. And I dab them lightly with my finger to kind of soften them because they're still off in the distance somewhat compared to the trees that are going to be closer to us. And I will be doing this over and over again. And of course, keep it random, keep it loose. Nature is random. Okay, here I'm putting in some bigger, closer trees. Very repetitive. Again, here, because they're closer, I'm just drawing a small thin line and then a lot of little dabs and light touches to make different branches to give that tree that round look. And a whole lot of repeat on both sides of the canvas. Okay, right here, I'm using that square flat brush again. And I used some Mars Black and Titanium White to make almost like a gray. And all I'm doing is, because I put it on to make a really fine tip, I'm just taking the brush straight up and down, and I'm just tapping on the indication of branches in the middle of the trees that are closer to us. Okay, here I decided that those background foggy forest trees and mountains were a little too gray and wanted more green to them. So I'm using a zinc white, which is basically transparent. And I'm going to mix it with a green similar to the green in the front, but not quite that much green. And I'm going to mix that together with a lot of water, kind of like a watercolor. And I'm going to apply it lightly over those background mountains without getting into the sky to make a slight glaze. Okay, at this point, I decided I wanted to change up the foreground. Instead of having some kind of landmass there, I decided I was going to put in water. So I used whatever I had on my palette, a little bit of ultramarine blue, the green mix I had come up with, and some white. It made it turquoisey color. And I decided it's a little too light and too green, so I added some more whites and blues to it and gave it the appearance of choppiness. Okay, here I decided that I wanted to really throw in some more fog. I know I said I wasn't gonna, but I put fog down by the water and into the trees rolling up the hills like it was rolling out of the water. For this, I used a soft bristle round brush, very small one. I used zinc white and I just layered and layered until I was happy with the result. And before adding on any additional layer, I would just soften it with that soft bristle large brush again to give that nice hazy fog look until I had the desired result I wanted. Push down a little too hard, so we'll throw a little more in here. And go with a softer touch. Let's get a little more. All right, I think that's all that done. Here we go. Moody sky, choppy water, just a moody forest. Boom.